I'm not on camera.
Well, that's important.
Planning Board is now in session. Good evening, everyone. First item on the agenda is continued public hearing for modification to an approved major site plan approval, Volvo dealership, 251 Turnpike Road. It's continued from our December 7th meeting. I'll ask the town planner to give us an update. Jenny?
At that last meeting, we had reviewed a letter from the Conservation Commission with a question whether or not the proposed fence and area was within the wetland resource area. The next day, I met with the conservation administrator and looked at a plan, and she determined it is not. It's completely out of that wetland delineation. A couple other things have come up since then that I wanted to bring to your attention, and I can show it on this plan. Should have put these on cardboard, I apologize. So if you look at If you look at the plans that were approved by the board, okay, let me get my bearings here. These are where the trees were removed, along here and along here. The applicant is proposing to put a fence up here. He's not proposing to put up fencing here. There's two abutters that live over here and an abutter that lives here. I actually ran into the abutter, one of the abutters that lives back here, and asked him if there was concern about there not being fence here. And he said, well, it wouldn't matter to me. All that would matter to me is this fence. However, the two abutters that live here clearly can see the parking here and can see the building. I would think that they would want a fence. And I said, well, were you shown an actual plan at the time when you were approached about the fence? And he said, no. We just met with Mr. Rose and said that we're proposing to put up a fence where the trees were removed. So I assumed it would be wherever trees were removed.
Yep.
Yes. So what I've been talking to Mr. Rose about, I said the board may request that you put up a fence here or plantings. So or both. And he said, I'll do whatever the board wants. He's in Texas, so no one is here tonight from the landscaping company, nor is Volvo, but Mr. Rose would make himself available on the phone if we have any questions. The one concern he has is when they plow, they push the snow all the way back here, and they push the snow here. So they're worried about if they put a fence here, the snow is going to push up against that fence where trees once were, or if they put plantings there, that the snow will kill the trees. So again, they said they'll do whatever the board wants, but this might be an area of concern. These were all trees, large pine trees, and they're just proposing pine mulch. You can see on the plans here. No plantings and no fence as shown here. So I don't know if you have any other questions. If you want me to call up Mr. Rose, he again is willing to be on the phone.
Was there any discussion of continuing this until he returns?
They're very anxious to try to get the fence in as soon as possible before the ground freezes. They did give me a continuance and an extension approval in an email. The Volvo office did today because the application expires January 8th, and the board's meeting on the 11th. So the other item I forgot as I'm looking at my list here, the one fence where they are proposing up in the front, I think Don at the last meeting questioned whether they could put plantings along that to kind of soften the fence to the cars. I spoke to both Mr. Rose and to Curtis Landscaping today about that, and they said there's not enough room to put any type of planting in the front of that. There's lights, and then it would be the fence.
I wasn't concerned about the planting in front where the cars are. It was the plantings on the other side of the fence so that the neighbors don't just have to look at a white fence.
Their response to that was it drops down from there. There's really not enough room. They're going to put the fence up, and then if you go there, you do see it drops down quite a bit. And that was the problem with the trees in the first place, that the roots weren't taking because there is quite a drop-off.
Open it up to the board. Mr. Stein?
So, in my opinion, they should do fencing there, where you said the current plan doesn't call for either plantings nor fencing. Other than that, I have no problem with the concept.
Do you want to see both plantings and fence, or just fence?
According to the comments that you just made, it doesn't sound like that's logistically possible, correct? That either there's slope on the other side, or the snow is going to kill it on the...
I was talking about plantings on where they're showing the fence. That is very narrow.
Right,
I'm
so
not
there's no room for planting, so at a minimum, the fence.
Okay.
Mr. Jenks?
I think the fence alone is adequate. We'll put up the fence to hide the cars. I don't know why we then have them put up plantings to hide the fence, because then maybe we should put something up to hide the plantings. I mean, if that's what the fence is intended to do, I think that's fine.
Mr. Mills?
I would put it running, where's the arrow? Running north.
Andrew?
Can I just ask a question of Phil? What do you mean by running north?
This area.
So you want fence where none is proposed?
Correct, where the houses down here can see the cars that are parked. That's correct.
I'm assuming up where the trees were, and it's showing it all along there to where the last tree is.
I'm
Yep.
sorry, I haven't been clear. That's correct.
Okay. I am assuming that's what you meant, so I just want to clarify.
So, Mr. Chairman, I am in agreement with both Mr. Jenks and Mr. Stein that the fence should be placed where the trees were removed. And in terms of if there's not enough space to put additional screening, live screening, then I defer to the landscape architect. And from personal experience, I know if there's not enough space and you put it next to a fence, you get the sun in the summer, it could dry out those shrubs and just kill them anyway. So if that's what the landscape architect is saying, or the landscaper is saying, then the fence would be adequate enough. But I do agree that it should go the entire length of where the trees were removed.
Thank you. Mrs. Bartolini?
I have a concern that the additional area that we're asking to be fenced over the proposal submitted by Volvo was an area that was used for snow storage. And if we fence that in and the parking area comes down here, that we may have inadequate snow storage, and we may have melting that then is channeled by the fence and create pooling and freezing in different locations. I understand the original site plan that planning board that I was not on asked for stuff here. Did they require this here and then this got removed because of the storm?
Yes, if you look at the plan underneath,
that's
you'll
what I
see
want.
that there were white,
I know they
Fine.
were, but were they there because of the requirements set by the planning board or
Yes.
because it made more sense when you put it in not to leave a gap? Because the pine trees have high, I never can think of the word I'm trying to think of when I say it. No, high limbs, the thing that goes up the middle, trunks, high trunks that go, so that you can put the snow in there without damaging the trees. I mean, I'm willing to go, I guess you can, I mean, because it sounds like just to get this done, he's saying he'll put the fence there if we want it.
and again, if you have questions about that, I'm happy to call him and he's standing by.
No, I believe that he's willing to do anything to get us to get a vote and get this done before the snow starts falling. I'll go along with it. I'll go along with the fence, and then we can all go down and help him take it down if it causes a problem.
Anyone from the public? For Volvo? I happen to agree also, so it may be appropriate to close the public hearing if there's no more comments, and then would entertain a motion to modify the approved major site plan. Mrs. Bartolini?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the planning board close the public hearing for modification to an approved major site plan approval on behalf of Volvo dealership, 251 Turnpike Road.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0, thank you. Mrs. Bartolini?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the planning board approve a modification to the approved major site plan, but with an amendment to the plan presented before us this evening, that the fencing not only go in where the proponent has indicated, but would continue around to the sight line to protect other residential abutters from seeing the parked vehicles.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, very good.
Okay. Can you take a 1-minute recess so I can at least let him know he's off standby? And
Okay.
Mr. Mills?
Make a motion for a 2-minute recess.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. See you in 2 minutes.
Actually, we're not scheduled for 4 anyway, so we couldn't start. The next hearing.
The board would like to speak with me with a thumbs up, so I will say, and that's at 7:25. So, all modern technology.
Planning Board is back in session after our 2-minute recess. It's now 7:30. Next item on the agenda is Planning Board's review of Park Central 40B project. Before we get into that, I'd like to just go over a couple things. There was a letter dated November 23rd, 2015, from Myrick and O'Connell on behalf of Capital Group, demanding that I recuse myself from these discussions. That was followed by a December 2nd letter from our town council advising me to consult with the State Ethics Commission. I followed that advice. I contacted the Ethics Commission. I was rendered advice and advised to get an independent real estate appraisal in accordance with the Ethics Advisory 05-02, voting on matters affecting abutting or nearby property. That is on file with the State Ethics Commission. I've followed the advice from Town Council and the Ethics Commission, and as a result, I do not need to recuse myself. Mr. Jenks.
Mr. Chairman, today I received a letter from Merrick O'Connell asking that I recuse myself from any further involvement in this matter being the Park Central projects. And I assume it means both the 40A and 40B projects. I am not going to sit tonight. I am not recusing myself. But I think it's best that unless I get permission from the developer to be here tonight, that I will not participate tonight. Still, I've had a couple of conversations with the State Ethics Commission. A couple more to be had. I would like, with your permission, to read this letter into the record.
Please.
It's addressed to me at Town of Southborough Planning Board, dated the 17th of December. RE Capital Group Properties LLC, Chapter 40B Proposed Project, Park Central, Southborough, Mass. It doesn't say anything about the other project, which is why I asked. Dear Mr. Jenks, this office serves as counsel to Capital Group Properties LLC and Park Central LLC, collectively referred to herein as Capital Group. At a recent Southborough Planning Board meeting held on December 7th, 2015, you disclosed for the first time that your daughter lived in the area of the planned project, and that you have existing business relationships with 3 of Capital Group's consultants for the project. At that hearing, in response to your disclosure, Capital Group informed you that while it did not take issue with you participating in that specific meeting, it reserved the right to request that you recuse yourself after it had a chance to review your potential conflict of interest disclosure. Having further considered your recent disclosure regarding a conflict of interest and the fact that you previously did not make any such disclosures with the Town of Southborough's clerk's office pursuant to Chapter 268A, Capital Group is hereby requesting that you recuse yourself from further involvement in this matter. Very truly yours, Robert B. Gibbons, and he is an attorney with Merrick O'Connell. I'd like to point out a couple of things. I did disclose at the December 7th meeting that my daughter lives in the area. She lives on Redgate Lane, which is a half-mile plus from the property. Within 300 feet, there is a presumption of a conflict, so she is well outside of the presumptive conflict area. Said at that hearing, in response to your disclosure, Capital Group informed you, well, that it didn't take issue with your participating in that specific meeting. It reserved the right to request you recuse yourself after it had a chance to review your potential conflict of interest. I answered to Council's question that there were 3 of the current, I assume, current vendors to Capital Group that I had done business with in the past. I did state that I am doing no business with them at this time. One of the companies was the engineering firm, Waterman, that's doing the site engineering. I had hired them for a one-time small project 5 years ago and haven't, as to the best of my memory, even spoken to them since then. If that's something Capital Group wants to use as a potential conflict, we'll see where that goes. Another was Thompson Liston. My son, a very short time ago, maybe a couple of months ago, gave a piece of his property to a next-door neighbor with the understanding that that neighbor take care of all the engineering work and any expense involved. That neighbor hired Thompson Liston. My purpose in raising Thompson Liston was because I know Steve Flug. I've known him for 50 years. He is now retired. I know Andy Liston. Andy Liston chaired the Board of Registration of Professional Engineers at the time I was appointed to that board by the governor. Again, I have had no direct business with them. I don't even know how long that's been. And third one, I can't remember who I said that was. Oh, and I mentioned, yeah, thank you. And I mentioned Fuss and O'Neill only because this board deals with Fuss and O'Neill. If I have a conflict for that, everyone on this board has a conflict for that. I have never had any other dealing with them other than through this board. The last paragraph of this letter says, having further considered your recent disclosure regarding a conflict of interest, I take exception of that. I made a disclosure because of a possible appearance of a conflict. I don't believe there's a conflict. It's part of the State Ethics Commission rules. They suggested that it could appear to somebody that any action I took on this board was influenced by the fact that my daughter lives a half-mile away. I don't have a conflict, and I take exception with the wording here that says my disclosure was regarding a conflict of interest. So that's all I want to say about this. Again, I am not recusing myself. I will leave tonight. Again, unless Capital Group wants to say, stay for another meeting. Otherwise, we'll get back to you.
I think that until you hear from the State Ethics Commission.
You gotta use a microphone, counsel.
Can we step forward? Excuse me.
Are these on? Normally these two are turned on.
Yep.
Mr. Jenks,
Yes, sir.
I think, seeing as you've contacted the State Ethics Commission, that it would be prudent from your part and on our part to suggest that you don't participate tonight until you hear from them. You know, the whole issue with conflict cuts both ways. You know, we anticipate that every member of any board that we appear before is going to be impartial. And, you know, a favorable vote from you can have the same result, okay, as having someone else, okay, feel that you weren't impartial. So I think for this, you know, for the sake of the entire process, it's just better get the opinion. The issue was raised with Mr. Morris. He apparently has the opinion from the State Ethics Commission that there is no conflict. Move on. And you know, we don't want to take the risk that you don't get that same opinion. Moreover, what we're here for tonight is really, we filed nothing with this board. We're really not looking for a decision from this board. We're here because we were asked to be here tonight because you were going to be discussing this project, but we have nothing before the board at the moment. So we're going to ask that you not participate tonight, and hopefully you will get a decision from the State Ethics Commission very soon, and then we can take it from there.
Done.
Thank you.
Mrs. Bartolini?
Before you leave, I have a question for Mr. DePietri. One of the few numbers that doesn't change, as I've been reading the paperwork submitted, is that there are 130 homes in the area, the study area. Where, you know, like
The neighborhood area?
the neighborhood area. Can you tell me what the bounds of that 130 is so that I know my status?
I don't have the list, but I can get it to you. Where'd that number come from?
It's been in the letters that your attorney sent, and that the there's been statements about 130, and Mr. Morris said that the 130 homes or something was going to be impacted by traffic. That led Mr. Jinks to mention that his daughter lived a half a mile away, probably figuring maybe that's in the 130 homes. So I need to know
I'm not
where
sure.
what is the neighborhood area
Well, I'm not
that
sure
is considered to
that
be
number might
impacted?
have came from an article that Mr. Morris spoke to with a newspaper, I believe, the 130 neighbors. Because I don't think my attorney went around and counted homes.
Then, in your opinion, what is the area of potential conflict? Where do you have to be
Well,
to be in
I
or
would
out of this?
Say anywhere that's affected by the traffic.
Anywhere that's affected by the traffic.
Correct.
And if your traffic report says that the street's not being impacted?
I would say if you're not directly coming on to Flag Road, Route 9, or Route 30, you're not affected by the traffic.
Here, then I may potentially have a conflict of interest. I'll throw it out to you. The ethics law goes to immediate family, spouse, immediate family, your brothers and sisters, and your brothers and sisters-in-law.
Sounds complicated.
So I have a brother-in-law and sister-in-law who live on Deerfoot Road. One house further down than Mr. Morris. But Mr. Morris has been determined not to have a conflict because it's not going to have an assessed impact on his property. And this one's even further away. I had never thought of it as potentially being impacted, especially since I didn't expect that much traffic to travel on Deerfoot, and the report shows that the traffic analysis gives account for that road and turning movements at Main, et cetera. But I do have a brother-in-law. I don't have a problem with my nephews, according to the ethics law, because it doesn't go down to that level. But I could with my brother-in-law if you considered that number of Deerfoot Road to be within the area of impact.
Well, I think we'll do the same as we did with Mr. Jenks at the last meeting. You can sit on this meeting, but we'd like you to send a request into the State Ethics Commission for the next meeting, just so everyone's dealing with the same.
I just don't know what the area is. I mean,
Well,
to
again,
write a
I'm-
letter to the Ethics Commission saying I'm in it or I'm out of it, I need to know.
Well, I don't
No,
think there's
the
any.
issue is not whether you're in it or out of it. The issue is that you have a relative, a brother-in-law.
I have
who-
a ton that live in this town.
who-
None of
who
us
owns
have
a-
any impact.
who owns a piece of property on Deerfoot Road, which is.
At the far end of Deerfoot Road.
Okay, I have no idea where they
Right.
live, okay? And I have no idea whether or not traffic impacts them. That's your, it's.
Well,
sub-
further than a half mile, probably another
Okay,
mile.
it's subjective, Ms. Bartolini. I mean, if you don't feel it's at all impacted, then you don't make the inquiry. And then we have to run the risk later on that if you vote favorably for us, someone says the reason that she voted for that, well, okay, I mean, that there was a
Because I
conflict.
didn't like my brother-in-law who you were impacting?
Right, I don't know, okay? You know, we don't know. And I can imagine that, you know, for projects of this size, that it becomes a problem, and all we're suggesting is better safe than sorry. Mr. Morris took the road that you're supposed to take. He found out, he made the inquiry, and they said, no problem. So we move forward. Mr. Jenks will do the same thing. And, you know, we can't tell you whether or not, okay, that particular property is gonna be within that sphere. I mean, I don't know if this project affects the value of your brother-in-law's house. Maybe what if it enhances it by 400,000? And they're gonna say, you voted for the project because it's doing good? I mean, I don't know. So we have to leave it up to you. And, you know, what is the street address? I mean,
I think it's 46 Deerfoot, 41.
41 Deerfoot, I mean,
Shows you how close I am.
we'll take a look at it also. But, you know, until tonight, I certainly had no idea that you had anybody living on Deerfoot Road that was within the sphere of the.
See, that was in the sphere, that's the point.
No,
I don't think,
of the Ethics Commission law, that you had any relative that's covered by the law. I mean, I had no idea. I don't think Mr. Petrie had any
I
idea.
didn't even connect the dots.
Okay.
you should have,
Well, I know I should have, but I wasn't.
but, okay. So you allow me to stay tonight?
Yes, no
Yes.
problem. I would just, again, request a determination.
Okay. All right. That determination can be a letter from me, after my speaking to them, a letter written by me, under the law.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, once again, you're standing by what you're writing, so
Yeah,
we
right.
presume that you're gonna
I
report.
mean, I already have one on file relative to below brother-in-law. Okay, I just wanted to,
We have two letters that the planning department has received from neighbors. I'll ask the town planner to address those.
Sure. I received two letters, one today and one on Friday. It's addressed to the Zoning Board of Appeals, but was given to us. I think at the planning board meeting, the planning board said if there were any comments, send them in. And it is CC'd to Jennifer Burney, Town Planner, Board of Selectmen on one of them. And the other one is Zoning Board of Appeals. So I don't know, do you want me to read these? Do you want the person submitting them to read them?
You could, if they're here, you could ask what their preference.
You want me to read it? Okay. And if I lose my voice, it's very hoarse. I forgot my water, so I'll have to run. All right, so I'll read the first one, addressed to Leo Bartolini, Chair, Zoning Board of Appeals, CC Jennifer Burney, Town Planner, Board of Selectmen, dated December 20th, 2015. Mr. Bartolini and Zoning Board members, I am writing you today to address concerns related to the Park Central project, specifically to provide comments related to the current traffic study prepared by the Engineering Corp. Tech, dated December 4th, 2015. During the last ZBA meeting held on December 9th, you requested, in the interest of time, that the residents submit our comments in writing for the peer reviewer so that he can take them into account as he does his peer review. While my comments are below, I expect there will still be sufficient time allotted for in-person discussion, comment, and review of the peer review and its findings. I expect the peer review will be made available publicly prior to January 6th meeting to allow the public to review the document prior to discussion. I would also expect the board will be ready to extend the discussion past the next meeting, as I am confident it will not be able to answer all of the concerns of a project this large in one evening. Please find below my comments for the peer reviewer to address. Number one, lack of study of Flag Road and the surrounding streets. The report states a comprehensive field inventory of existing traffic conditions at the study area intersections was conducted by tech staff in March 2015 to obtain information related to intersection geometry and lane usage. The field investigation consisted of an inventory of existing roadway geometrics, operating characteristics, and safety characteristics. This focus reported primarily on the Route 9 Flag Road intersection at the proposed location of the entrance to the proposed project site. Though it has been requested as part of the 3 previous versions of this report, no attention has been provided to the remainder of Flag Road and the connecting streets. There continues to be no mention of pedestrian or bicycle traffic on the road that has the entrance for 2 schools in towns. It is unacceptable to ignore this portion of roadway that will likely bear the majority of the impact of this new massive project. Second paragraph. The current report notes that Flag Road has one location that is only 17.5 feet wide. It does not note that the majority of the road is only 21 feet wide, has no shoulders or sidewalks or right-of-way to correct this. It makes no mention of what happens when vehicles are parked on the road, snowfall reduces the road width by a foot on each side, or even what happens when someone is walking on it. It makes no mention of the blind corner at the left turn onto Lover's Lane or any of the other challenging locations on this roadway. Third paragraph. They make note of the average speed of the roadway as above the posted limit, a comment which is not supported by their data, which calls out an average of 23 miles per hour on Flag Road. My guess is they averaged this with the speed on Deerfoot, which is notably wider. I would also note that the speed data was taken on a straightway, arguably the fastest portion of Flag Road. Should you properly study this road and take speed samplings from various locations, I believe you would significantly have different results. I would request that a full study of the true traffic conditions on all of Flag, Deerfoot Road, and the surrounding roads be conducted to show the real impact this development will have on the safety of the existing and new residents in the area. We have 2.5 more pages. Trying to go fast. Second bullet, traffic volumes. Several issues arise with the traffic data provided. The current data was taken at a time when traffic was at its minimal levels. While I understand a seasonal adjustment was included, the data was taken at a time when school traffic was at a minimum, around the winter break when most extracurricular activities were not being run. I am confident that counts taken at an alternate time would have provided significantly different numbers, as much of the existing traffic can be attributed to the schools. The traffic studies only defines the peak hours as 7 to 9 and 7 to 9 a.m. and 3 to 6 p.m., and only data from these time frames were included in the analysis. While this may be the national average, in this area many people, including myself, leave significantly earlier. I would suggest these time frames be expanded to include 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning, as well as 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. in the evening, includes school release, to get a true representation of the rush hour traffic associated with the numbers. Next bullet, assumed growth numbers. The calculations for expected growth are exactly that, estimations. Please note the data used to prepare this estimation is now 3 years old and limited. The town of Southborough is in the unique position to verify the growth estimations by recounting the traffic now and comparing it to the original to see the actual growth over the last 3 years and see if the expectations were correct. At minimum, a single location could be used to establish a multiplier that could then be used to adjust all of the expectations. I believe we still do not have enough data to properly estimate the potential traffic coming into this area, as such a large amount of construction is planned and not planned in the surrounding towns. Many of the projects, such as the build-out on the EMC property, are incomplete. While the roadways are done, it's impossible to know the final impact the build-out of the entire site will have. Knowing that the current estimates are accurate seems to be a logical first step to ensuring we can manage the continual buildup of traffic in the future. Next bullet. The current traffic volumes were placed on demographics provided by the Census Bureau from the year 2000. The demographics of this town, as well as all of the country in terms of dual income families, etc., has changed dramatically in 15 years. I believe the estimations of the traffic that will be generated by this new development are extremely understated and have not been updated since the developer changed the project to include 60%, 80% units, 80 units as 3-bedroom units. There must be an alternate data source that can be substituted to provide more accurate estimations. I find it impossible that, as shown, there will be less than 1 car from each housing unit leaving the site during peak hours. That is less than the percentage leaving from the surrounding neighborhoods. Based on the price point of these units and the expected demographics of their tenants, this number appears to be extremely low. I request that the town revisits the counter data to confirm the growth estimates predicted in the study, as well as for the peer reviewer to provide comment and/or more accurate data as to the prediction of the traffic that will be generated by this site. Next bullet, traffic pattern assumptions. Simply, the assumptions expressed in the current study do not match the traffic patterns provided by the data. The current study states 85% of the traffic leaving the site via the Flag Road exit will exit right onto Route 9. However, if you review the data of the existing cars leaving the Blackthorn data, 81% of them actually turn left and head away from the troubled intersection at Flag and Route 9, Figure 2, page 8 of the report. If the existing neighborhoods have figured out that it is easier and faster to head in the opposite direction, it is rather bold and presumptuous, perhaps wishful, statement to say 85% will go the other way. I ask that a sensitivity study be produced showing a traffic condition that mimics the current real numbers. One of the traffic modifications noted in the study is the improvements to Route 9, specifically the newly added acceleration-deceleration lane. They note that this is designed to offer a separate lane to allow people to get off and on Route 9 more easily, as it provides a separate lane to accelerate to speed or slow down to exit in the various businesses and Flag Road. I have to disagree with the effectiveness of this new design. While a nice theory, what it really provides is a third lane and basically an extension to the exit for 495 North. While this provides some relief to Mass DOT's challenge of weaving traffic at that location, it actually makes it more dangerous to attempt to get on Route 9 from Flag Road, which will encourage people leaving the new site to find a safer alternative, namely the other direction on Flag Road. Based on this new traffic pattern at the intersection of Flag Road and Route 9, Mass DOT's concern and denial about using Park Central as the main egress for this project site, I believe strongly as a town we need to address the likelihood that Mass DOT will at some point in the future attempt to close the intersection of Flag Road and Route 9. They have already considered closing Park Central. It stands to reason that as you now put close to 3,000 car trips a day on the road, 200 yards away, they will have to deal with the same challenge. If this project is to continue, I would ask for an additional sensitivity study showing the effects on Flag Road should the state close the intersection of Flag and Route 9. I would also that the town request and receive a letter from Mass DOT stating they will not close this intersection. If this is really not on their radar, a letter should not be a challenge. If they will not provide such a letter, the town should then plan appropriately to ensure the current and future residents of this town are safe. From the existing traffic counts, intentional lack of study of the remainder of Flag Road, Deerfoot Road, and the surrounding areas, it is apparent that the provided report is designed to look favorably on the project build-out to push the project through without true consideration of its impact. It is interesting to note that as part of an agreement between the developer and the direct abutters, they agreed not to oppose this traffic plan. It should also be noted at a recent planning board meeting, it was learned that the developer sent a letter to the head of the planning board asking him to step down and not comment on the project. This is presumably because he lives on this side of town and has first-hand knowledge of the challenges associated with these roads. However, because the letter has not been made public yet, that it is only my assumption. The previous traffic report raised concerns when 1,000 trips a day were anticipated on these roadways. Under the current build-out proposal, they are estimating over 3,000 car trips a day on the same roadways. Logic alone says there's a problem. I believe a proper study of the entire roadway will also agree with my concerns. So I ask again, in order to truly understand the impact of the largest project ever in this town, double the numbers of housing units on this side of town and add over 3,000 car trips a day on our roads, please review and consider all options to keep our current and potential new residents safe. Other alternatives that should be considered. Bullet 1. Making all traffic exiting and entering the new site go right to Route 9. If 85% of the traffic is truly going that way anyways, the last 15% should be a minor implication. Bullet 2, as Capital Group Properties already owns a small corner property at the Flag Road Route 9 intersection, consideration to use that land to provide a left turn lane to enter the property should be studied to alleviate the likelihood of traffic backing up onto Route 9 when a car is prevented from turning left into the property because traffic is backed up getting onto Route 9. The culvert location that is currently only 17.5 feet wide should be widened to accommodate a full 2 trucks passing side by side. It is interesting to note everyone else considers this location to be a hazard. The applicant calls it out as traffic mitigation for their site. If making the site access available from Route 9 is only not sufficient to moderate the traffic at the corner of Flag Road and Route 9, the town should be prepared to dead-end flag at the culvert, providing the Flag Road Route 9 intersection for access to the new site only while preventing any traffic from the existing roadway access and vice versa. This will provide the reduced traffic in the existing neighborhoods even more so, as it will reduce the ability to cut through from Route 30 to Route 9, which is currently adding to the traffic on the local roads. Thank you in advance for taking my comments under advisement. I look forward to your responses. Regards, Howard Rose, 2 Bantry Road, Southborough. Okay, I have one more on the back. This one is, again, addressed to Leo Bartolini, Zoning Board, CC Jennifer Burney, Town Planner, dated December 20th. Mr. Bartolini and Zoning Board members, I am writing you today to voice my concerns regarding the proposed project at Park Central Drive. During the initial filings with the state of Massachusetts, a feasibility study was conducted to ensure the town could support the initial 40B project, that we had enough resources, water, power grid, space in our schools, etc. While this process was completed for the 180-unit development, this review and documentation was never, to my knowledge, updated to reflect the current build-out as currently proposed by the developer. As the applicant has chosen to bring the entire site under a loophole in the law that treats the entire site as one project instead of as multiple projects, we have removed the checks and balances normally associated with the process of going in front of the planning board. Instead, it is my understanding that this review process will now fall under the purview of the Zoning Board of Appeals as part of the 40B process. If this entire site is going to fall under the 40B process, then I would expect the requirement for the feasibility study still exists to ensure the town's resources, including the school system, can support the revised build conditions. Please review if this study has been revised. If, as I suspect it has not, please do so immediately, as it could have severe impacts on the viability of the site planning. I look forward to review the report and its findings. Respectfully, Howard Rose, 2 Bantry Road, Southborough, Mass. And then I have one other letter, if you'd like me to read that. This one is not as long, so this doesn't have a date on it. This is from Jonathan Green, Zoning Board of Appeals. As a follow-up of the meeting last week regarding traffic from further developing Park Central, I have a few recommendations that I was asked to put in writing. I think we should consider these improvements as part of the project to avoid having the town and the taxpayers responsible once the development is in place. The following points are existing conditions that are an issue today, and with either the addition of a 40B alone or the addition of the 40A and 40B will cause additional traffic and safety issues for the existing roadways. The primary area to focus on is the traffic in both directions on Flag Road intersecting Route 9 and the southern end and Deerfoot Road at the northern end. Number 1, the traffic studies have traffic moving towards Route 9 from Flag Road. Today's environment is dangerous at this intersection with no light and an intersection that is contending with movement to Wendy's, Flag Road, Cumberland Farms, Park Central, and the on-ramp to 495. A suggestion would be to put a light in at the intersection or to hold the light at Madison Place to allow for a break in traffic and allowing the existing and increase of traffic to exit onto Route 9 West in a safe manner. 2, the on-ramp from Route 9 onto Flag Road is narrow. Today's vehicles entering Flag Road are going too fast, and the hill in turn becomes an issue when cars veering over the line. I would consider opening the roadway for better sight lines coming onto Flag Road to avoid potential accidents. This would also help with sight lines egressing to Route 9, as the new travel lane goes all the way through the Flag Road, through the Flag entrance, unlike prior to the reconstruction in the last month or so. 3, the culvert bridge towards the end of Flag Road at Route 9 is narrow. The traffic study refers to this as 17.5 feet wide. The typical SUV is 7 feet wide. I would consider that with the amount of traffic being added in either situation, 40B or 40A, that there will be standing traffic in the culvert. I know, for example, that buses coming through, my son's buses at 8 a.m., the bridge, as well as other landscape trucks and oil tanks. You will not have room for passing traffic. This is another existing condition that is a problem today and will increase in any traffic should be mitigated. 4, similar issues are existing on Flag Road between Route 9 and Deerfoot Road today. There are a number of narrow areas with existing tree structure. One that comes in mind is an area with trees on both sides of the road at about the Strawberry Hill entrance. There is also a very narrow corner in front of the intersection of Lover's Lane that has very poor sight lines to oncoming traffic or pedestrians on the road. There are no existing sidewalks in this area, even though it is approaching the schools on Deerfoot. I would suggest that the town/developer widen the road at all points to an appropriate level that would be equal to a new subdivision when possible and add sidewalks. Again, this is an existing condition that should be fixed with either a sole 40B project or in conjunction with a 40A. Any additional density and traffic in this area should be subject to improving the safety of the area and existing roadways to an appropriate level to the best of the town's and the developer's ability. In summary, the existing roadway conditions are a safety challenge today with narrow roads and limited sight lines with no sidewalks moving north on Flag Road to Deerfoot Road and the school entrances. The intersection at Flag Road and Route 9 does not have a light and is a conversion point for traffic going to Wendy's, Flag Road, and Cumberland Farms, the Red Roof, Park Central, and 495. There needs to be some thought put in how to create a safe environment for increased traffic to egress on Route 9 in a timely manner. I believe if we wait on making these mitigations until after a decision on a 40B or in conjunction with the 40A, it will become the responsibility of the town and taxpayers, which I don't think is fair. Kind regards, Jonathan Green, 10 Tara Road, Southborough.
Any questions or comments on those letters? Other than the town planner's excellent reading of them?
And I'm completely parched, so I need to get my water. But I had one question. The traffic study uses 2000 census data. Why is it not using 2010 census data? Do you know the what's that?
I think they used, go ahead, guys. I think the 2000 versus 2010 was only referenced for Journey to Work.
Okay.
Because I don't think they used census data per se in making the tech did for basic traffic flow numbers and stuff for like 2000.
But I guess the
11,
traffic
2000.
engineer can, address
I just
that,
want,
'cause
I was gonna
it's-
ask the same
yeah,
question.
yeah.
I never heard that there was no Journey to Work data done for Southborough in the 2010 federal census.
But some of these points, I think we have, and we'll go over tonight, is just the hours that were used too, because I know that was brought up at the last meeting.
I need to get my. My first question's gonna need her back.
Yeah, she'll be right back.
I've already asked it, but to her, but I want it to be in the record. I guess I can ask it to the applicant if.
Town planner is back in the room. Mrs. Bartolini.
Okay, I have a question that kind of plays into the same sort of number consistency. We know we're going to have proposed 180 40B units. And then the townhouse portion, we've had a use variance approved for 158 units. We've got a traffic study that, for that site, uses 140. A bedroom breakout on your summary sheet for us, Jen, that comes up to, when added, single-family and duplexes, to 133. How many units are going to be on the ground for the townhouse portion?
We're currently at 135 units.
135?
Yes.
And that's because, what made?
Site constraints, topography,
constraint.
wetlands, ponds.
I have, and just to clarify, 29 single family. Does that sound right?
Yes.
3 bedrooms.
All
All
three
but
bedrooms,
right.
yep.
The duplexes, I have 52 and 52. 52 duplexes will have 2 bedrooms, 52 will have 3 bedrooms, so that must be where the number's off then.
Correct. Yep.
That equals 133, so there's got to
No,
be
it should
somewhere.
There's 135, maybe. The 29 number's right.
Okay, so it must be
No,
in the other.
I think it's, yeah, what'd you say, 32?
I said 29 single,
Right.
and then 52 and 52, 104 duplexes. 52 are 2-bedroom, 52 are 3-bedroom.
Yeah, one of those are off.
Okay,
Yep.
so
There's
if
a
you can
total of
just
135.
clarify
There's
that.
29 single units, which would be 3-bedroom. The balance is split in half, 50% 2 bedrooms, 50% 3 bedrooms.
50% plus one.
Yeah, right.
One of the, I believe it's
There's one-
53 three-bedrooms, but I don't have it in front of me. That's what I.
All right, so if you can just clarify
Yeah.
that breakdown so that we have a correct understanding, that would be terrific.
So I have a question, Don, if I may. There had been a question raised at the previous meeting by one of the abutters regarding getting an exception to mass housing's requirement in the 40B portion for the minimum percentage of the units that be 3 bedrooms. Do you have an update on that?
We don't have an update. We were informed by the town's consultant. Okay, our proposal is going to be 2 bedrooms. Okay, we're proposing 2 bedrooms. Mass Housing, in their final approval of the comprehensive permit, may impose the 10% 3-bedroom requirement. We presume the ZBA is going to issue a comprehensive permit that has 2 bedrooms for all the units. And I don't, it's our position, and it was the position of your consultant, that the 3-bedroom requirement, since it came into existence after we filed our application for the comprehensive permit, was not applicable. And it was just at a meeting, 1 or 2 meetings ago, that Mr. Marchant actually informed us that he felt that Mass Housing would not waive that requirement.
So in that light, Mr. Chairman, I would really like the town planner to send a supplemental letter to Mass Housing furtherly, requesting that exception, that we ask them to waive.
I think the letter would come from the ZBA, so I think the planning board would ask the ZBA, because
Okay.
this application is before the ZBA, so I don't think the planning board has the authority to write that, but I think we could ask in your request, this letter, sending it to the ZBA, make that recommendation. Okay.
What did you want the ZBA to do?
Just to reinforce, so Attorney Catanzaro is basically saying that there's a possibility that Mass Housing will impose their overlay requirement for a minimum percentage of the units to be 3-bedroom units. The proponent is not actually asking for 3-bedroom units in the 40B, correct?
Correct. we do
So
not.
all I'm asking is that we as a town, through our ZBA, supplement and reinforce that we would prefer to have no 3-bedroom units for the obvious reason that we want to minimize the impact.
Mrs. Bartolini?
I would prefer that the planning board not request such a letter. We have a state plan that we were instrumental in helping to approve that stipulated that we have a strong need for 3-bedroom units. We have a project before us as structured that would close the door on 40Bs for a while. So it would make it even more difficult for us to be able to get development to occur to meet the housing needs that we have, so that we should act now to get this project to address the needs in the unanimously adopted plan by the planning board in the Board of Selectmen in Shopsy.
So the proponent is proposing 29 3-bedroom units under the proposed use variance. I think we are absolutely adhering to our unanimously adopted housing plan. If this were to go forward with the 29 3-bedroom units, to further exacerbate the impact of this project with the mass housing requirement, to me, is highly excessive.
Can I clarify? So the use variance, are you referring to the 29 single-family? That's the use
Sorry,
variance.
maybe I had my numbers incorrect. I thought it was 52 1-bedroom, 52 2-bedroom, and 29 3-bedroom.
No, 59,
Those are
29
units.
3-bedroom, single-family townhomes, and then 53 three-bedroom. So you have
Okay,
80,
so
you'll have
so-
81 three-bedrooms.
Well, thank you,
Okay.
Attorney Kenzar, because that further supports my view
Right.
that we have plenty of three-bedroom housing stock in this proposal, and any alleviation of the impact by not having mass housing impose this minimum percentage would be beneficial to the town.
Can I, just so I can understand, so you're okay with the three-bedroom, 29 single-family, three-bedroom homes?
That is not what I'm saying, but what I am saying is, I don't see why mass housing's minimum percentage needs to be imposed.
Well, Mr. Stein, the only point that I would just, and Mr. DePietri just noted this, I'm sorry, none of the homes in the townhouse component are technically affordable under the state formula. So, I mean, there's where mass housing is coming in. Because a percentage of the three bedrooms will be affordable units, whereas in the use variance in the townhomes, there are no affordable. Now, whether or not that makes a difference to mass housing, I don't know, but just as a point of order, I think that's part of what they will be looking at, the number of affordable three bedrooms.
I mean, maybe at a minimum, 25% of the 10% would be affordable, and the rest could go under the townhomes. And maybe you propose that to mass housing.
Mr. Mills?
You with me?
No, I'm not quite following what you were, are you saying that you may put affordable units into the townhouse portion of
No.
the project? No,
What-
that's why I was looking at you, I was amazed.
What mass housing is saying is a percentage of the 40B have to be three-bedroom.
Yes,
And then of that percentage, 25% have to be affordable.
right.
So maybe you just take that, the 25% portion, and apply it towards the 40B and say we've met the rest under the townhome.
I have to admit that I have not read this regulation, and I am so happy to hear you
It's
say
new.
that it happened after you applied, so it's way after my retirement, but I was keeping up on
I
stuff,
think
but,
what Mr. DePietri is suggesting is if there's 10% three-bedroom requirement, okay, that's 18. If you take 25% of the 18, let's say you have 5, okay, so 5 of those have to be affordable. Well, give you the 5 affordable in the 40B because we're having 81.
At three-bedroom.
Yes, give you
Three-bedroom.
5 affordable three bedrooms in the 40B. Don't require
and
any
the other
more.
75% can all be two.
Can all be not three bedrooms, correct, okay, because in this same development, we're having 81 three-bedroom homes, okay? I mean, it's just a matter of,
At what the market will bear, though.
Well, that would be market rate in the rentals anyway.
it satisfies the three-bedroom affordable requirement that mass housing is looking for. That's one way of also proposing it.
Mr. Mills?
First of all, thank you for coming. The other piece, if I heard correctly, you said you were expecting the ZBA would request for them to be 2 bedrooms. Is that correct?
Our proposal to the ZBA is all two-bedroom units. The ZBA hopefully will approve it at 2 bedrooms, but ultimately it goes to mass housing for final approval, and they have the final say.
So the total number, okay.
And we're strictly talking the 180 apartments here.
So regardless of the 180 apartments, do you see that number changing at all going forward?
No.
Either way, based on what the ZBA might approve or what mass housing says?
We've got the eligibility letter for mass housing. 180 has been approved by mass housing. I feel, will be approved through ZBA with that number.
So that no matter what happens, the juggling of whether they're 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, 3-bedroom, the number of units is going to stay the same.
Correct.
Thank you.
Can I?
Yeah.
Again, I had 2 different numbers for the height of the building in the 40B. Is it 2 5-story or 2 4-story?
Initially, it was 2 5 stories. We redesigned it after feedback from the neighborhood and we got it down to 2 4-story buildings.
Do you have a sort of a layout of where the affordable units will be within the 180?
We don't, that's something that the developer and the housing agency sit down along with the town planner and Shopsy and basically designate them throughout the buildings, have to be evenly dispersed.
And will they be evenly dispersed in bedroom size? Because we have a bedroom breakout for the 180,
Correct.
but I still couldn't divide by 4 and then
Yeah, I mean, there's,
do my 10% on the 25 and all that, because I don't really know, is there a I think I heard that we're going to have, I have it as low as 3 or 4, 3-bedroom for the affordable, for the mix of bedroom sizes and stuff. I'm just, even though we don't know where they're necessarily located, do we have a feel for?
again,
if-
it's 25% of the 1-bedroom, 25% of the 2-bedroom, 25% of 3-bedroom.
Oh, it is?
Across the board. Yep.
All right, all right.
It'll be 25% of 18 is the number of three bedrooms.
3 bedrooms.
So what is that, 4.25? 3 bedrooms.
Yeah,
So-
well, that's, I mean, I was,
And I don't know whether
I was down
whether
lower
they
even
round
than
up
that
or
when I was
round
doing
down,
it,
I
but-
mean.
okay. Parking. The discussion in the, I think it was actually in the tech document, that if there was a shortage of parking, which I think there may be, being proposed for the 180, that the spillover could park down in the townhouses and effectively walk about the length of a football field or more uphill to get to the rental units.
I can tell you that we've done some studies and we feel we're right on with the 1.8 per unit. Mass Housing felt we were high. They wanted us to reduce it. We told them we didn't want to. I think the tech number is I would say, aggressive at 2 per unit. Again, the whole idea is
they
we're
were
not looking to make
lower.
parking that's not gonna get used.
No, I'm
More
not either.
impervious surface and whatnot. I mean, we feel comfortable with the number that we've chosen. Again, we want to provide parking for all the units. And based on what the other projects around the area have, 1.8 is right in the sweet spot.
Jenny, were you
No,
done?
I'm done.
I just wanted to make a comment following Jesse and following Kathy. We were talking about the affordable units, and I was very involved with the affordable housing plan, and Jesse serves on Shopsy. And I just want to reiterate what Kathy is saying, that the town, the affordable housing plan calls for more affordable housing, family housing, and family housing is 3 bedrooms, not 2 bedrooms. So I know there's a conflict on that, but providing 3 bedrooms in single-family houses is not going to be affordable for families. So I just want to point out there is a need for affordable family housing with 3 bedrooms in the town. So somehow trying to balance that.
Right. Would the proponent even consider reducing the number of 3-bedroom units in the use variance portion of the project to help offset in case mass housing implements that minimum threshold?
At this point, I would have to say no. I mean, we feel that there's a need for 3-bedroom units. We don't, and I don't know, I still don't understand the issue with the 3 bedrooms. From what I hear, the school system are underutilized right now, that the numbers aren't where they thought they were. They were talking about possibly closing one of the schools. So, I mean, I could see if the schools were overcrowded and whatnot, but from what I hear, there is no issue with the schools. So, I mean, I'd like to, until we hear from the school department, I'd probably want to, not agree to that at this time.
my next question then is, will you be doing a feasibility study on the impacts of on the schools? You know, what did Madison Place have for the number of children? And I don't know off the top of my head the number of bedrooms there. Is it 2 or 3, or is it a mix?
I think it's all two.
I think it's 1 and 2 bedrooms. I
Okay.
think there's,
I don't know if the townhouse, if it's
there is, the
larger or
last
not.
I heard was like 12 or 14 kids over there. And we can get that number to the town if that's what you're looking for, but it's a, you know, low percentage to the number of units that are there.
That was a last year number, but yeah, I had heard I thought it was 14, but, you know, I mean,
Right, I've
it was
heard that
even
too.
smaller than I thought it was gonna be.
So what would, you know, based on that, if it's 1 and 2, what would the impact be then if we have 3 bedrooms? What's, how many children? So would you be willing to do, or I think the board
mean, all
would
we can
make
get
that
you is
recommendation.
numbers that are with surrounding apartment complexes.
Yep.
I don't think there's any feasibility study out there other than, you know, you call them, I mean, it, you know, changes, I'm sure, you know, annually.
What's
So
that?
It changes annually.
it changes
Oh,
annually.
annually,
And again,
right.
the 3 bedrooms, it's something that Mass Housing has just imposed within the last 12 months
My
for this particular reason.
My next question, being an advocate for affordable housing for the town, because I like to speak for all walks of life for the town, is would you be willing to do any affordable units on the use variance? And I haven't discussed that with the board, but I'm just bringing that up.
No, I
as-
understand. I would say that, you know,
Did my
based,
questions.
yeah, I would say based on the price point that we're going to be at, it might not meet state affordability levels, but I think it's going to be, it'll bring in a whole new variety of income families to the town of Southborough. Maybe not affordable, but affordable in Southborough standards.
We've recently, the planning department, we've been looking at some of the over 55 projects that I think the board, the town has approved, hoping that they're going to be affordable, and we're going to be reviewing that later on tonight. But just looking at the assessed value, and, you know, some of them are in the 2s and 3s, but then the others are in the high 6s. So I think it's great to be able to provide, you know, lower priced housing, but there's no way to keep it under that control unless there's a deed restriction that prevents that.
I
Because the
agree. I mean,
market will dictate
right,
the value.
It's strictly market. Look, when we started out 158, we're down to 135. We've lost a lot of units.
Would you even do 1 or 2? Is
I'd have
that,
to say-
or up for discussion maybe?
Yeah, I'd have to say no, only because we've lost 20-some units already, and we're not done with the final design.
When you wrote a letter to, when the town, via the ZBA, asked you to go from condominiums to 100% rental in your 40B project, there was a letter written to the town explaining why that wasn't economically feasible for the project. It was a good letter. And then it became, you decided you would do it. Were you asked by the ZBA to do a financial feasibility study, or provide financial feasibility data in order to show that in order to do 180 rental, with 25% of those being affordable, you needed an extra 347 for-profit bedrooms to justify the 45 units of affordable?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but initially we had 180 for-sale townhomes with the ability to do a potential of another 240Bs for-sale product,
Right,
totaling approximately 580 for-sale
right.
apartments in town. The ZBA asked us to go back and come up with a master plan. And in doing that, change the for-sale product to for-rent product. 140B for-rent product. The balance being some other type of project, which is what we came up with the townhomes. So you take 580 for-sale townhomes, and we're down to 184 rent townhomes, 180 apartments, and 135 townhomes. We don't count bedrooms. I mean, it's basically units in our mind, apartments and then units.
Well, no, but in doing a financial analysis, the number of units, the number of bedrooms increases the value of the for market units, so, and the reason you couldn't do 180 originally was it wasn't economically feasible for the project, so the law provides that the ZBA in any community can ask for a financial feasibility analysis of what the appropriate mix is needed, so that the intent of that portion of the law is that the developer doesn't make excessive profit off of one side of the project when providing, getting townhouses into a community that doesn't have them zoned that way, but doing the apartments and doing 25% of them affordable, so we used to always look at I guess it's just basic operation that normally you look at, prove to us that this is the right mix.
Well, I think the ZBA's goal was to basically stop the unfriendly 40Bs from coming into town and get the town over the 10% for the current timeframe and well into the future.
Well, that's what I'm worried about, the well into the future concerning
Well,
the
that's,
housing needs we documented.
and you went from 580 units for sale down to 320, approximately.
Okay. All right. It's not too early to ask this question, but I may be told it's too early, but it isn't. Do you have the state-required marketing plan for how you're going to market this project?
The 40B portion? That's
I'd
all
like
that's
to hear you
required.
have a marketing plan for both.
Well,
right
we
now.
do, but you said the state required.
Right, well, the state required, the state has never really mixed a project like this before, so it's always written with the idea that it's affordable, and now we've got this combination. And obviously, just as infrastructure applies to both, the marketability of one versus the other is related to the quality of each, and how you reach out and just basically, do you have your marketing plan?
Well, yeah, part of the 40B application, there's an appraisal from an outside appraiser that the state hires, who does a marketability study for the 40B units, as well as our own in-house one. And that's all part of the 40B application.
Okay, so how are you going to market the units? What did you tell the state is how you're gonna market the units?
Price-wise, or how we're gonna do it?
In general, price and.
Well, there would be
and
an
how-
on,
when are you reaching out? How are you reaching out? To whom are you reaching?
Can I just, the marketing plan comes as part of the submittal. So that ShopC will review the marketing plan, the location of where the affordable units are, and then provide comments back, and then that
But
gets
there's already,
approved.
as he has said, a marketing plan's already been filed.
I don't think we're talking about the same thing. I mean, you're talking about I'm talking about marketing as in advertising. How do you go out and,
Right, the
attract your
marketing
customer.
plan that the state approves for the affordable units, that if you hire MCO Housing or whoever that
Right.
is, it's that
I'm
marketing
talking about the general
plan.
marketing of,
Right.
you're
Okay.
talking about just the affordable units.
I was actually talking about both, but
Okay, well, that's what I thought you were talking about. We're on the same page.
we're on the same page.
I'm
all
not.
right.
Well, the discussion here is 40B. I just don't want to drift from the agenda item.
Yeah, and I'm strictly talking 40B, Mr. Chairman.
You just said you were talking both.
No, meaning as far as the apartments go, not the townhomes.
What is the marketing plan for the 40B?
So again, there's a couple agencies out there that you would hire who would manage the 40B apartments. They would vet the people to make sure that they comply with the state standards and whatnot. We would hire one of those.
Manage in the sense of managing financial eligibility and the marketing, not manage in the sense of mowing the lawn and
No, right,
taking care of
right.
the
As far
leaking.
as whether they comply with the state standards and whatnot, they would basically, vet the applicants on an annual basis.
Right.
So we would hire one of those, agencies.
Okay.
And then, the market rate ones, we would, advertise in typical newspapers and have signs out there. There's a waiting list at Madison Place currently.
At Madison Place, yes, I am aware of that. That, you don't have to convince me about need. I'm on the need
Yeah.
aspect of it. Just want to make sure that, there's show you how far out on the limb I could go, as I could, as A and B merge as one relative to infrastructure and a lot of other things, and transfer of zoning waivers down to the A as well as the B, et cetera. You could look at it, as has been often said at the ZBA, that it's one project. And therefore, the whole 25% of the whole project should be there. I am an affordable housing advocate.
Do you want to keep going, Jenny?
Not unless you had other questions.
Mr. Stein?
So I'm going to direct these questions to town planner, and if you don't know, if you want to move them over to the proponent, that's fine too. Who would be responsible for bearing the cost and expense of infrastructure changes as mandated by the consultants on the project? So in the traffic study that called for removal of tree and vegetation, that's, I believe, out of the project. It also calls for adjustments to public ways.
I think those will be discussions that the applicant will have with the town on mitigation. Typically, you come up with agreements on mitigation.
And
And it would
if
be
I
a
understand it
decision,
correctly, currently,
permit decision. But it would, the specificity you're looking for about who says it where, the ZBA says it in the comprehensive permit.
so it's definitely not under planning board jurisdiction at this point.
It would be in the comprehensive permit, as Kathy
And,
stated.
okay.
Well, as a follow-up to that, you're talking about an existing town road, and the ZBA, I don't think, has any jurisdiction over existing town roads. That's the selectman's authority. Is that right?
That is correct.
And
So there's
wouldn't that
another
not, would that not apply also to the tree and the vegetation removal?
in the right of way.
We tell developers to take down trees. So can't the ZBA
But
under the comprehensive permit?
I'm
But-
pretty sure that these are outside the boundaries of the, if you read the traffic study, it calls for removal of tree and vegetation to
One
improve the
tree,
sight
yeah.
line.
Up by Blackthorn.
It's a tree.
Yeah, no, all right, I said tree, by Blackthorn, yeah, I read it.
If I may just comment, the ZBA has the authority to impose mitigation as a condition of the comprehensive permit. We don't have the authority to institute, let's assume that we agreed with it. Okay, we can only do it if we have the right to do it where we're told to do it. If the town controls the right of way and says, yes, we want this tree cut down, we want this sidewalk put in, as long as you had the authority to, if you owned the area or you had the easement and it was a condition of the comprehensive permit, okay, the ZBA could impose it as a condition. We would have to demonstrate that it was uneconomical if we felt that the condition was not reasonable. On the other hand, if you want us to do things on people's front yards, okay, then we couldn't do it. So I think to answer your question is, we would have to bear that cost if it was required to be done somewhere where the town had the authority to require it to be done.
And so that is correct. What I would suggest, though, is I think when the planning board is sending some of their comments, they're going to be discussing feasibility studies that should be done, looking at impacts on school, traffic impacts, et cetera. And then this board can look at that and make recommendations to the ZBA. I'm sure the Board of Selectmen will as well, recommendations for mitigation.
So, did you want to go over more of the comments? Again, these are not comments to the developer, they're comments to the ZBA. They acknowledge that the developer is here, but again, this is a transaction between the planning board in performing our duty in commenting on a 40B project, if we choose to, and we've chosen to the ZBA, who has the authority for the 40B portion of the projects.
Well, I know one of the items that was brought up at the last meeting was the idea of trying to cluster some of the possible units. And I know we've had that discussion on the single-family and duplex. Is there any way to take some of those and make triplex or quads just to free up more green space? And you might want to respond to that. 'Cause
No, I
know
can.
you-
Again, we could add triples and quads and increase the unit count to 158 up again, but we decided not to. We figured that 1 and 2 unit buildings were more marketable and more, family orientated, which is why we stuck with that. And to create more open space around the units, we'd have to basically do larger units, which we feel just isn't the feel that we want for the project.
But is there any way to take the existing number that you have with the 135 and condense a few of those? Not saying a
Yeah.
lot, just to open up more pocket parks
I mean,
or,
there's 20 acres of open park in our mind. They can walk down the sidewalk and walk through the 20-acre parcel.
it is hard to see, even looking at the plans. You gave me the site plan and trying to look at that. Do you think submitting a plan that shows more of the greenery might demonstrate the areas? That there is more of pocket parks here and there?
I mean, I don't know, did you get a full set of plans, the 40th Street set?
Yes.
So if you go through there, there's, I think it drops down to,
This plan.
correct.
Yep.
On some of those pages, it breaks down into different sections of the project. You can see the space that's between each one of the units. So I mean,
Okay.
they're not, they're 20 and 30 feet apart. There's 40 feet from the property lines to the unit. So, there is green area around each one of the units.
Is there enough area for kids to go out and play, though? And,
Yeah,
I mean,
I think if you look at the larger scale plans, I think you agree that there is area for the kids to go out and play.
Okay.
And I'll be glad to go through that with you if you want.
sure.
If there's nothing else,
No, there isn't.
at this time, is this the part where we wanted to talk about the January 4th
Yes.
submittal?
Right. So we're going to be submitting comments to the ZBA as soon as possible, hopefully even before January 4th. But when do you anticipate the peer reviews for the traffic study, as well as other studies, reports by Fuss and O'Neill, to give the planning board time to look at that? If it comes after January 4th, they want to be able to have time to review and provide further comments.
We're hoping for the peer review on the traffic back next week. At worst case, you could always do a supplemental letter.
The board,
With approval of the zoning board, of course.
Right.
I'm just suggesting it.
right, well, the board, so if we are getting comments in by January 4th, this board's not meeting again until January 11th. Would that give sufficient time? I mean, what's the anticipation of this project closing?
The comprehensive permit,
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe it's gonna close for, I think the plan is to allow us to get to basically present all of our information in the month of January, and then take a period of respite as we go through conservation, and then return to the zoning board for the formal decision. So I believe that's what the chairman of the zoning board indicated was his preference.
Okay.
But I think what we're waiting for, what we are anticipating with all the comments in by the beginning of January, so we can basically take the plans from 70% to 98% and submit it to the conservation.
Did you say you're at 43% now?
70%,
70%.
7-0.
And then the other request that the planning board, I think, is going to make is that you not wait to file the site plan approval and, after the comprehensive permit, but you file it as soon as possible. That way it's done
Oh,
concurrently.
we would, as soon as we're comfortable with the wetland land with conservation, and we've had 1 or 2 hearings, we plan on coming,
Okay.
looking forward to coming back here
Yeah,
shortly.
I just think, I think it will be helpful
No,
rather than
I-
waiting till the 40B
Like,
closes.
we're not looking to design it twice. We want to do it once and concurrent with all the other boards.
Okay.
Most definitely, yeah,
Okay.
same page.
I think you'll find that the board is trying to be helpful
No.
and just trying to make the best project possible.
No, I agree, yep.
So, thank you.
Another sort of progress report. The representative from Waterman at our last meeting said that the ENF was going to be filed that Friday. Have you filed your ENF with MIPA?
No, they're a little bit, Waterman's not behind, the ENF engineer's behind. One of the engineers had a personal problem. So
when-
we're hoping for by the end of the year.
We were supposed to be filed on the 14th of December, and we were told just yesterday that getting it done by the end of December was their goal.
So, the ZBA, gave the planning board the understanding that our comments are to be submitted to them by January 4th, and we intend to meet that date based on the information that we have now. I think you've acknowledged if the plans are at 70%, and it sounds like the wetland, the conservation area, conservation actions may change the plans, and that's why you're not moving any further ahead until that piece is looked at more closely. So, yes, we will get comments to the ZBA by January 4th, based on the information that we have now, and based on what you just said a couple minutes ago. It sounds like when more information comes in, the planning board will continue to review that, and then we'll continue to submit comments. And those will most likely be after January 4th. If anyone's got a problem with that or a question relative to that, let's hear it now.
Can I also ask for clarification? When did you say the MIPA and the Mass DOT filing was going to take place? I was
Well,
writing.
End of
Hopefully
December.
by the end of December.
Thank you.
Mrs. Bartolini.
I have, Freddie Gillespie's in the audience, so I'd like to ask her a question. At our meeting 2 weeks ago, you commented that the Open Space Preservation Committee had had a chance to meet and discuss the project and that a letter was going to be written. Has that letter been written?
No, is this on? I was ill, so I didn't get around to it, so I'm here tonight to ask if we submitted it with the comments that were made at that meeting, would that be acceptable to the planning board? Do you have a deadline for that? Those comments to be included in yours?
Oh, and to be included. I'm very interested in your comments, because I agree with Jen that there might be some tweaks in the layout that would improve the usability of the site by the residents, the children within that project, and the town, because we've talked about, the town recreation committee's asked about fishing derby or public ice skating and that kind of thing. That's why I
Want me to
took the
state
time
A
to.
few of them right now? What they were?
Sure.
First, we were very pleased with the 21 acres that's going to be set aside as open space. We understand this is not a normal, well, it's not a subdivision, and didn't really quite understand that. And we did know that it was a variance that didn't allow for a lot of input from our normal requirements for open space within a subdivision. But seeing the 21 acres, that was, well, we didn't see it. That was one of our questions, because the plan we saw a portion of the land, and we did want to have a little verification of how exactly it would be protected. And we understand this is part of an arrangement with the neighbors. Is that correct?
Yes, you know?
The 21 acres?
It is, yes.
So we were hoping, and we'd asked last time when there was another full set of plans, that we could get a copy of just that sheet, and I believe Mr. DePietri said we could. But we were interested in exactly how that's going to be protected, because you can say it's going to be open space, but if it's not protected, then next week it could be built upon. So we just wanted to know a little more about that. Otherwise, did you have a comment on that?
No, no.
Oh,
No.
I thought you were grabbing their microphone.
No,
So,
just- I'm getting ready.
And we're not looking for, we know it's a private property, so we weren't asking for public access, although, certainly that's something you'd like to have the conversation about. And then the other thing we had asked about was a little more green space around the units, although hearing tonight, we certainly didn't want that at the expense of, I don't know how many more units. If you put them closer together, you'd have to add. We thought they could just maybe do a few triplexes or quads or cluster a few of them closer together to put, not to lose units, but to add a little green space closer to. Most of the units, when we looked at the plan, seemed to back up to either wetlands or detention ponds. So there didn't seem to be a lot of area where you could go and kids could throw a ball. We appreciated the nature trail around the pond, but it seemed like that was far away from a lot of the units. So you sort of, my recollection is correct, I don't have a plan in front of me here, but the pond and the clubhouse was at one end, and then the open space kind of at the other. And if you're in the middle, if you're walking, and be nice to have some little green spaces with a bench here and there, was what we had recommended. And the other thing, which I'm pretty sure you wouldn't find any trouble with, would be throwing some wildflower seeds in some of the many detention pond areas, or stormwater control, which will make it more of a pollinator-friendly habitat than just grass. And I'd have to go to my notes to see the rest of them, but those were the main ones. And he already was,
Would like us to take those comments and include it in the planning board.
if the planning board thought they were valid, we'll send a letter, but the wildflower mix is just, we're in a crisis with pollinators in not just the state, but in the country, and, doing that, it's a simple fix. It doesn't impact your functioning, and it improves the attractiveness maybe to the neighbors, and while creating wildlife habitat. So that's sort of we think that's like a no-brainer. And capital groups agreed to do that in the past, so I don't think that would be an issue. And just, we would like some clarification on how the 21 acres is actually going to be set aside as open space protected. We find that having a conservation restriction is pretty much the best way to do it, and I don't know if you've had thoughts about that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just answer that question, both the use variance and the agreement with the butters, which is also a recorded restriction, provides that we will record a permanent conservation restriction encumbering that portion of the site. It's a little bit more detailed. It does give us the ability to either deed it to an entity of our selection or of the town's designation, so long as we're preserving the ability to use it as somewhat of a tax shelter. But in essence, it's a no-build for the 21 acres with a recorded conservation restriction. And that's in both the use variance and the agreement with the abutters.
So we just need to get a copy of that somehow to review it.
Both of those documents are public records. I mean, They're recorded, I can give you the book and page, and you can take a look
Okay.
at it.
Just read, you know,
Thank you, Freddie. I can't speak for the entire board, but when we get to formulating the letter, I would be very supportive of including your comments in it to ours.
and I'll write them up so that you have them in writing and send that to the ZBA as well, but, and we appreciate being able to comment at all because we understand this is not something that we're part of the review process like I think most of the town entities are not also. Well, we were told by the ZBA that we weren't, so.
Just one question to Jen. Jen, in the very good 6-page or so document you gave us that outlined a description of the project and issues for inclusion in the letter, et cetera, you also had layouts of projects from other communities that you talk about as potentially meeting the kind of landscape design that you were talking about. My question is, are they 40B projects, though, with the kinds of other provisions that are necessary? Or are they market rate projects?
The second example is an over 55 that is not a 40B, but the front portion of it, you'll see that there's a multi-use field that was given to the town for public use. And then there's,
Are we
You know,
talking Westboro Village now?
the last example.
Oh, the wet last one, I think.
And I apologize, I should have thrown this up, but I can put it on the town's website. But there's, walking trails throughout, and there's pocket parks, a town green, but there's clustering, so there's a
Yeah.
mix of single-family and townhouse style.
Well, I envision this kind of
And then the first example is the one in Westboro Village, where I'm not sure if that was a 40B. That's near the train station, and that's a mix of single-family, triplex, and quads, but it has 5 parks kind of scattered throughout. So just another way of showing that you can cluster and try to create those parks, because when I went to the Westboro one, which does have children, and within one of them I saw kids bicycle, couple balls, soccer balls. I saw someone walking a dog and older people walking around. So you can tell there's definite varying uses, and I do know the importance of having those pocket parks or common areas. So those were 2 examples, and we'll share that with the builder.
Okay.
Well, we've been going for about 95 minutes, and I think it covered a lot of ground. Does anybody else have any questions or comments at this point? Yes, sir.
Howard Rose, 2 Bantry. I think you've heard quite a few of my comments tonight, actually, in the letters. A couple things to consider as you look at this project. Traffic alone is obviously a challenge, but look at the feasibility. I understand your desire for 3-bedroom units. This is going to more than double the housing units on this side of town. There's currently, if you look at all those roads there with 1-acre housing, there's 165 housing units on this side of town. This says over 300. When you go to the 3 bedrooms and the potential children that come in there, I know we keep saying that we're going to have a shortage in our schools. Well, we're talking about an entire school worth of children potentially coming in 4 years. What's going to happen now that, if you do the math, it is 70, 80 units, two kids a unit, it's 140, plus the 2-bedroom units, you're going to almost 200. The potential for almost 200 students, which is about a school. What happens now when our Northborough also expands and our high school that we share can no longer support both our town and theirs? Now we need a high school. So consider the long-term applications of this. When this project first started, there was a potential for a over 55 component. That seems to have disappeared. I wonder if the developer would consider putting that restriction back into some units. That would obviously change the feasibility of, the school system. Definitely the traffic, because the peak hours would definitely reduce. It could be a good solution to many of the problems plaguing this site. So it's something to consider. But the long-term effects of what this project is doing is what needs to be considered. Yes, there's going to be more traffic. Can we deal with that traffic? Yes, there's going to be more challenges to our infrastructure. This is why that feasibility study is so important. There was one for the 40B. We should have one for the whole project and come up with ways to solve that that make sense for the town. Thank you.
Thank you.
That will be one of the recommendations in the letter to the ZBA, is conducting a feasibility study to look at the impacts on school, et cetera. And then coming out of that will determine whether 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Wendy DeMichaelis, 15 Bantry Road. I just wanted to go back to earlier part of the discussion about the 3-bedroom units in the 40B. I just think would be really inefficient to kind of pass something or have the ZBA approve the 1 and 2 bedroom units and then just be waiting for Mass Housing to come back and say, oh no, do 3 bedroom. I just would prefer that this get settled beforehand so that everyone can plan accordingly. I think Mr. DePietri offered a solution, a compromise. I would just ask that you guys consider including in your letter getting this addressed and solidified as part of the final ZBA approval of the comprehensive permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Anyone else? Very good. Mr. Mills?
Motion for a 2-minute recess?
You mean you want to make a motion to close this discussion so we can go into a 2-minute recess?
Oh, I think that we don't need a motion to close it. I've asked if there's any more questions or comments. I don't see any,
All right,
so.
then I'll second it. For the recess.
Motion's been made for a 2-minute, and seconded for a 2-minute recess. Any discussion? Here and none, all in favor? Aye. See you in a couple minutes. Thank you. Planning board's back in session after our 2-minute recess. Next item on the agenda we're going to do is the approval of minutes.
Jen, before you leave the room, you're gonna say September 21, right?
Yeah?
All right, September 21, I've handed in twice now ideas of what was my comments wrong relative to the motion, or, because I don't think the motion was changed.
I've given those to Destiny, so.
And I made notes and I sent them back to Janet.
So are they in this? I get it. I'm gonna abstain from the 21st. I've done it 2 or 3 times, I'm not gonna, and I don't think it looks like it's what's in the packet.
Why don't we move on to the December 7th? We'll go back to the 21st when the town planner comes back. Meeting minutes of December 7th, entertain a motion to approve them.
I'll make a motion for the purpose of discussion.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Mrs. Bartolini?
Page 1, line 22. I don't think we're suggesting at Volvo a white corrugated fence? Is that what is that a correct term? It's a plastic, but I don't think it's corrugated.
I don't think we specified.
But is this a?
They said it was white plastic.
Yeah,
Let's get rid of that, yep.
line
not
23.
corrugated.
Shield the street, I've got to figure out what I've got here. Oh, shield the street/parking lot lights as, afraid I don't, let's see, which word? White fence would span approximately 80 feet and shield the street and parking lot lights.
Streetlights and the parking lights.
As the original trees did, or something like that, just to make it clear that we're, I'm sorry, my writing is so bad, I can't, on a magic marker type pen that I couldn't, it's smeared enough that it, not, what does that say, knots? And non-electrical conservation. Oh. After, as the trees
That's
did, period, yes. They noted a letter from the Conservation Commission has been submitted, that they recommended that trees are replanted as opposed to fence. I mean, I was trying to make sure that it was clear to anyone reading these minutes that what they wanted were, they wanted trees planted, not a fence.
Why don't we submit these?
Okay,
Yep.
It's easier to do it this way.
all right.
So,
And my-
did you want to go
My
back?
writing, you may have to help, I mean, I'm sorry, I tried to, but
Did you, on the September 21st, anybody else have any questions or comments?
I think that my 21st one's with you then, too.
Mr. Mills?
Make a motion, we accept the September 21st minutes as presented in our packet.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, my one discussion point, Don, is that I left the meeting at 8:45 PM, so I'm just going to recuse from the vote.
September 21st, Jenny?
Can you, what was that again, Jesse?
Line 108 on page 3, Mr. Stein left the planning board meeting for the evening at 8:45 PM. That's correct, therefore I'm going to recuse from the vote to approve the minute.
He's not changing the minutes, he's just
Stating that
explaining why he's abstaining.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor? 3-0.
I'm abstaining.
Right. You got that, Destiny? Okay. Next item is the planner's report.
So with the planner's report, I wanted to give you an update on the open space. We conducted a site visit of Kellam Farm on Friday morning. Freddie, Mimi, Don, and myself. All of the material that was exposed has been removed by the applicant, and Open Space is going to be sending in some comments to the planning board with recommendations. I've sent a doodle survey to the planning board and to Open Space and other folks, and I need the board to go on and take that. We're trying to schedule a few meetings. Mass Autobahn is coming out, I'm sorry. We need to get together to review Mass Autobahn's work so that we can give them final feedback. So please take that survey. We're trying to meet the first week of January.
Just clarification, are you looking for all the planning board members or the subcommittee members?
Members. Yep. And then number 3 is the open space plan update. We've hired Conway School, who will be updating the plan. They did the original one. We're meeting on January 12th, and we haven't determined a time yet. We're trying to set up a meeting again with the working group, just so we're on the same page before we meet with the Conway School. So again, I have a doodle survey for that. And then last, Pine Hill Conservation Restriction. We've been waiting for Conservation to give feedback, and Beth finally was able to spend some time looking at that and has sent comments back last Thursday. I forwarded those comments along with the open spaces comments that they provided in the summertime to town council to ask that they're included in the CR.
I'd like to go back to that site walk that we did last
Sure.
week. I think you said that all of the stuff that was on the surface was removed, but there was one area or two that Freddie and I clearly found some more debris on the surface, and there was indications, and apparently when we were there in the spring and did the site walk, some of the vegetation, I mean, it wasn't a complete jungle like it was all summer, but apparently some of the vegetation obscured some of these items. There's some pipes, there was a gas can, pieces of metal that we still found, but nowhere near what was there before. And when we did the site walk with the property owner and pointed out these areas, they did address them. But there is some more stuff there that has to be cleaned up. And then, consistent with that, there's indications that there's some other materials that may be below the surface, roofing materials. So we're I think when we left the site walk, we decided to huddle with others like Conservation and the Board of Health and others to be guided on what the next step is relative to, you know, if we're going to go beyond just cleaning up those items on the surface, or if the guidance is that because there's an indication that there may be some stuff buried there, that there may be some additional steps that need to be taken before the town would feel comfortable in accepting the land. So we're in the process of doing that. Now, Freddie, was your commission gonna essentially capture that in a letter to the board?
We'll have to have a meeting and then review what we saw and then issue an official statement, but I think you captured, there were Quite a few issues we still found on the site walk, consistent with our original comments to the planning board. What was that, 2007? But yes, a lot of the surface debris, great improvement on what had been cleaned up. What was left on the surface was just small compared to the many tires and 50-gallon drums and car parts, and, I mean, not much left on the surface, but our concern is what's underneath, because it really does look like it. Not only did we see a plan that called it out as a farm dump, but it appears, by looking at it, that it probably, you know, was stuff that was dumped there and covered over and dumped and covered over. And the concern is what is still inside, or if the soil is contaminated. We don't believe normally that they just dump a couple of 50-gallon drums on the surface of a property, that it was indicative of more intensive dumping going on, especially if you'd seen the areas where you could see looked like a truckload of car parts in one section and a truck, you know, dump load of building material in another section. So, I mean, there were mufflers and exhaust systems and, you know, and then another section had shingles and, you know, pressure-treated wood. And everything you can see basically on the surface, most of it has been removed. But, I mean, in any open space land acceptance, any land trust, that's the first sign that if you see just a portion of what was there before, that's a, you know, the alarms go off and you stop and you want to do further investigation. So that was our prior position, and we don't, you know, we haven't talked about it since we did this site walk, but that's probably what we would be.
So does that mean that, your position would be, based upon the site walk last Friday, that the land is still in an unacceptable condition and no recommendation should be made at this town meeting for
I can only speak as an individual at this point, and I would not be comfortable that the town accept liability for a parcel where we don't know. I mean, it's abutting wetlands that lead to a stream that flows to the Sudbury River. When you have a site that could have potential hazardous waste, leaching, I mean, we don't know, but when you have a site that has potential, the current property owner bears all responsibility for cleanup. Municipalities are not exempt. So if the town takes the land and then DEP in the future comes back and says, you know, they find something going into the Sudbury River or the, you know, the main trib to the Sudbury or the wetlands, they can come back and go after the town for the cleanup, and we would bear full responsibility. That's my understanding from the documents I've received from DEP. So I think caution, you know, there's some parts of the property. The other point is we don't even know where the boundaries are. So, I mean, I think that's the first thing. You don't even know where the land is. You can't tell where there have been encroachments or not. So.
Yeah, that's all what we discussed, and those are the steps moving forward. It's even further complicated because some of the runoff, or some of the land, the open space, proposed open space land, receives runoff from the Mass Pike. And we saw evidence of, you know, tires and car parts and...
inference that they're from the Mass Pike?
Well, they're on the other side of the fence. There's a fence there that seems to delineate the line, the property between the Mass Pike and the property owners along the Mass Pike. And you can see over the other side of the fence, there's an embankment, and stuff that falls off trucks and cars, whatever, winds up down the embankment and into that low area, which, again, some of the runoff from there goes into the same area that in the same stream and detention area that we're concerned with. So it's a little bit, it's not, it could be that if there is contamination, that it might not be from our site, it might be from the Pike. So, again, but we gotta keep this moving. We wanna make sure that, we keep these steps, going and, be guided by, appropriate guidance, and then, move ahead in
In
that.
that vein, what is the next step on our part?
Well, I guess regardless if the Open Space Commission sends a letter or not, I feel that it's appropriate for, I guess, the town planner to get the appropriate people like Conservation. Again, I said, Board of Health, and then, maybe even, a selectman, involved in this. We do need, and we may refer to, even the building inspector may guide us relative to the DEP regulations when it comes to this type of a site. My experience with it has been, in some cases where you don't, you may take soil and surface and groundwater samples to determine, if those are clean, and if they are, then my experience has been that the site is not disturbed, it's left alone, because there's no indication that there's anything resulting from what appears to be there. So these are the little steps that take you into different paths of what to do with what's there. Could range from doing nothing, could include continuous monitoring, a single round of monitoring and testing, multiple rounds, or even some mitigation, which could be depending on what the problems are. So, but we got to keep moving in that direction so that if in fact the protocol for this type of site gives it a green light, and then it's up to the town whether or not we want to accept the land. But before we ask the town to accept the land, we need to have that information available so we as a town can make an informed decision. So if there's nothing else on that,
Just one question to Jen. What's the next step for the Pine Hill conservation restriction to go to town meeting? I mean, what do we have to do next?
Well, right now, town council is reviewing the CR.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't think that would go to town meeting for approval, because that's not, the town is not taking ownership on that. It's just a CR. Am I
Like,
correct, Freddie, or?
I forget at this time who's taking the CR. If it's the Conservation Commission, I think it may have to go to town meeting because that's
Okay.
viewed as
We'll clarify
real
that.
property. But I'm not sure who the CR was going to. It was a while ago when we reviewed it. I would say that the Open Space Preservation Commission made comments prior to the Conservation Commission, and we did, at our next meeting, want to just review and make sure those are consistent. We expect they would be, but, so there might be a second letter from us if we had any further comments, but we reviewed it a while ago.
So I've asked for town council to provide comments prior to the board's next meeting, so I'll give you the next steps. So if
Okay.
Open Space can try to get those comments, I don't know when you're meeting, but if we have to do
When's your next meeting?
the 11th, and I've sent
January.
of January, so I've sent the Open Space's comments and Conservation's comments, and asked him to incorporate that, and I'm sure he's going to send it back and say, okay, any other further comments, and if you have them, we can send them. But we'll have the whole outline of who's holding the CR and who the land.
The other deadline then is, when are we I was looking at budget mainly the last time I
Yep.
looked at the schedule, for our articles to be submitted for the inclusion in the warrant and
Mhm.
publishing, because we're coming up on that.
We are, and I don't have I apologize, I didn't bring my timeline with me, but you're on the right course, so you'll have time.
so is there room on the January 11th to discuss future warrant articles?
Yes,
we'll put that on the
because there is
agenda then.
nothing on the agenda so far.
So I guess there's time to discuss it.
And on that note, I just quickly, I'm not going to take a lot of time. I just wanted to give you an update on NSTAR. The as-built is currently under review. Fuss and O'Neill did an inspection on Friday. William Calary Lane, which will go to town meeting for road acceptance. That also was being inspected last week. The as-built has been sent to Fuss and O'Neill and the DPW, waiting for comments on that. And then in your packets, I have two things. I just want to let you know, last Monday, I attended a historical commission meeting. They had reached out to me because they have the demolition now that they have the demolition bylaw in place, what tools could they have in place to offer alternative solutions? So they asked me to come in and kind of talk about some of those, and one of them is a way to save houses, historical structures, by offering alternatives, whether it's, bed and breakfast, antique shop, artisan type of uses. And so I know the Historical Commission does want to come into the planning board to talk about that. Their first step is to meet with the building inspector just to find out what some of the customary uses are right now. So that is down the pipeline. And then the second attachment that I gave you were just some zoning recommendations for this annual town meeting as it relates to elderly housing. And number one is a letter from town council regarding a court case recommending a zoning change, and that is just striking the verbiage that says public or non-profit community housing organization. The court has come back saying that's an invalid exercise of the town's zoning authority. So I went through the bylaw and found it in these sections, so I will redline that and where that has to be removed, but that can easily be amended at the town meeting.
You also suggested changing the percentage.
That was my next. So step two, my next this is my recommendation, is right now the cap is at 7%. And I recently had a conversation with a member from advisory that recalled originally when it was going to town meeting, it was at 10%, and there was compromise to keep it at 7% because this was a new bylaw and wanted to see how it worked. I've attached in here the number of units available. I thought I did.
You did.
Oh, it's on the back of mine. So
It was good reading.
and it's based on the assessor's data, which you update every year. So based on the total single-family units, which includes apartment numbers, there are 2,978 units. So based on that 7% allowance, there is a remaining 15.46 units available. And I put a whole lot of census data in this saying, that the population is aging. The census data shows that residents under 35 are going to decline, and that 65 and older is going to increase from 11% based on 2010 to approximately 26% of the population in 2030. So as Southborough's population ages, the theory is that there will be fewer children living in the community. And this is, relates to the baby boomers, et cetera. So would the board consider raising that cap? And it's something to consider. Maybe you don't want to do it
But
for
we
this
think of
town meeting.
eliminating the cap. The reason, I was around while that debate was going on too, not on the board, but a lot of the elderly came to me and asked for assistance in trying to make sure over 55 housing, because there was a specific private project being proposed at the same time. the legislative process was occurring. And I agree with the comment that the 10% cap was dropped down to 7, but it was done because of sort of a fear that the town was going to be overrun with over 55 housing, that everyone would want to build that here. The thought that you mentioned earlier also, that over 55 would be affordable elderly, and when you read the data, it really didn't. And the bylaw has a list of things, affordability only being one of many, that a developer can put forward as justification for building the over 55. So, I think the fear of the over 55 has gone away. We've got high quality over 55 projects. So, and we didn't get overrun. But we also didn't get the affordability factor that we were looking for. So I think your comment that that we need to start talking deed restriction and to get that affordability, but I think that might necessitate some rewriting of the purposes section of that bylaw, so if we're going to put deed restrictions in. Because if someone comes in and says, I'm providing transportation, which is one of the reasons that you can give a density bonus and stuff to the over 55, how does that tie to a deed restriction?
Right.
But
So-
if we look at this, I mean, this is just not the kind of housing, and that may be what they're being appraised for at Southborough Meadows.
This
But when you read
is-
the paper, they're selling more in the 300s.
This is the assessed value, so that could be
Right.
lower, like you
Right.
said. And so my number 3 is my town planner recommendation is the affordability. Not necessarily for this town meeting, but a future town meeting, because the bylaw says the development is offering to provide for the needs of Southborough residents of varying income levels. Well, if you look at it, the lowest assessed value is Southborough Meadows, where the assessors have, ranges from 262 to 302. Then you go to Wildwood Villages, and it's 329 to 378. Carriage Hill is 510 to
I know
626.
some of them have sold for 700,000 plus.
And then Admiral's Glen is 500 to 682.6. So although the town, I think, has tried to keep those prices low without a deed restriction, you have no way of controlling it. So
And the 15 to 16 units that we have left, does that include the 15 already permitted for Stonebrook? Or if Stonebrook would be built, would that mean that we had reached the cap?
I didn't attach my other spreadsheet that I have on here. I think it included Stonebrook.
It did?
Yeah.
Okay. It would make sense because it's permitted,
Yeah,
but,
because it's permitted.
well, I don't know how the others feel, but.
Well, I can tell you the other side of the discussion about the 7% was to keep that percent low. There was a serious concern that when the demographics changed, that the age restriction would be considered a hardship on whoever owned them, and that there would be a move to remove the age restriction and open them up to everybody, in which case, because of the number of them in the town, and if the age restriction was removed, there would be a surge of school-age children. And that was not the original intent of the bylaw, to allow these condo-type units in the town, because prior to this, they weren't allowed. So that was one of the concerns, too, that they would eventually be converted to no age restriction, and it would put a surge, essentially an initial surge, and then completely change the ratio for loading the schools indefinitely. Anyone else? The only other item is, in our packet tonight, is a draft to a response to a letter that the planning board received on November 30th. looking at the lateness of the hour, if the board members have had enough time to take a look at this, and feel comfortable that it moves forward, that's fine. If you feel that you want to provide additional comments, similar to how we do with the meeting minutes, we can do that also and get those to the town planner, and then handle it that way.
I did receive one comment that the date on the back, I have December 6th, it should be December 7th. So if you do want to provide comments, I would, provide them just to me and not to the entire board.
Mr. Mills, good? Mr. Jenks?
No, I'd prefer not to discuss this tonight.
And Mr. Stein? Good?
Willing to mail it too, so.
All righty. Then that concludes our items for tonight. There's only one other motion that needs to be made before we make the motion to adjourn.
I have an item that she knows about, just to let the board know that there's district local technical assistance grants available now from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. I sit on MAPC for the town, and it would help us with no matching money required, with a lot of either the housing or implementation of master plan, updating of master plan. We just meet so many, I'm not gonna go through it, but it's practically written with Southborough in mind. And, but the funding is, the application process opened December 7th, I guess, and they're going to fund on a first-come, first-received basis, and it's a rolling admission, that kind of stuff. So as busy as we are, if we want to do anything relative to this, we've got to, can I give this to you when you could share it with the other?
Yeah, and I have a copy, but I can make copies. Why don't you keep that, and then I can make copies for everyone.
I think we should, at our, especially since January 11th appears to be a light agenda,
We can
we
put it
could
on
say,
that.
let's
Yep,
agree to file for X, Y, Z.
yep.
And you can do one on your own, and you can still go into a regional one. So if another community asked us to do a joint one, we'd be eligible under both categories.
So, thank you. Consistent with this time of year, there's usually a motion made. Mr. Mills?
Mr. Chairman, I wish the board a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year,
And the staff.
and the staff.
Thank you.
That's a motion to have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year,
That is.
and it was seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Thanks a lot. Good night.